In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world still sleeps and the mind has not yet been invaded by the digital storm, there exists a sacred space. A space that ancient philosophers understood well, yet we have almost forgotten. It is the space between stimulus and response, between the flood of information and our reaction to it. Today we live in an age where this space has been compressed to nearly nothing, where the mind is under constant siege from notifications, alerts, breaking news, and the endless scroll of digital content that promises everything but delivers only exhaustion. The average person checks their phone over 200 times a day, consuming more information in a single morning than our ancestors encountered in entire lifetimes. We have created a world where being informed has become synonymous with being overwhelmed, where the pursuit of knowledge has transformed into the prison of endless consumption. Our minds, once capable of deep reflection and sustained thought, now flutter from notification to notification like leaves in a digital hurricane, never settling, never finding peace. But there is another way. 2,500 years ago, in the markets of Athens and the marble halls of Rome, ancient philosophers developed a system of thinking that was specifically designed to create clarity in chaos, stillness in storm, and wisdom in the face of overwhelming complexity. They called it Stoicism, and its principles offer us a lighthouse in the fog of information overload, a path back to mental sovereignty in an age of digital dependence. The great Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius understood something profound about the human mind. He knew that we cannot control the events that happen to us, but we possess absolute dominion over how we respond to them. This is the foundation of Stoic wisdom, the dichotomy of control, and it applies with stunning relevance to our modern predicament. Cannot control the fact that your phone will receive dozens of notifications today. Cannot control that your email inbox will fill with messages. That social media will serve you an endless stream of content designed to capture your attention. But you can control something far more important, your response. When Marcus Aurelius sat in his tent on the Germanic frontier, leading the Roman Empire while plague ravaged his territories and barbarians threatened his borders, he did not try to absorb every piece of information that came his way. Instead, he practiced a discipline that we can adopt today. Each morning, he would remind himself of what truly mattered, writing in his private journal thoughts that would later become the masterpiece we know as meditations. He understood that the mind, like a garden, must be carefully tended. What we allow to grow there determines the quality of our inner life. This practice of mental curation is more crucial now than ever. In a world where information is infinite but attention is finite, the Stoic chooses carefully what deserves the precious resource of focus. Before reaching for your phone in the morning, ask yourself the question Marcus might have asked: what information will make me a better person today? What knowledge will help me serve others and fulfill my responsibilities? The rest, no matter how urgent it claims to be, is simply noise masquerading as necessity. Epictetus, who spent his early years as a slave before becoming one of history's greatest teachers of freedom, understood the vital importance of guarding the mind's gates. He taught that we are not disturbed by events themselves, but by our judgments about those events. In our digital age, this wisdom translates into a fundamental truth. We are not overwhelmed by information itself, but by our belief that we must consume it all, process it all, have opinions about it all. The notifications that pulse on your screen, the breaking news alerts that interrupt your concentration, the social media feeds that promise to keep you informed but leave you anxious and scattered. These are not neutral events. They are designed to trigger specific responses, to create urgency where none exists, to make you feel that your attention is desperately needed everywhere at once. The Stoic recognizes this manipulation and responds with the most radical act of rebellion possible: the conscious choice to disconnect. Consider the profound silence that Seneca, advisor to emperors and one of Rome's wealthiest men, would seek each day. Despite his enormous responsibilities and the constant demands on his attention, he understood that wisdom emerges not from the accumulation of information, but from the quality of reflection upon it. In his letters to his friend Lucilius, he wrote about the importance of having fewer inputs so that the mind could process more deeply. He practiced what we might call selective ignorance, choosing to remain uninformed about trivial matters so that he could remain deeply informed about essential ones. This principle of essentialism runs through all Stoic teaching like a golden thread. In a culture that celebrates busyness and the appearance of being informed about everything, the Stoic asks a different question. What truly requires my mental energy today? What information will help me become more virtuous, more helpful to others, more capable of fulfilling my responsibilities? Everything else, no matter how compelling or urgent it appears, is a distraction from what matters most. The ancient Stoics had a phrase for this discipline: the view from above. They would regularly step back from the immediate chaos of daily life and consider their situation from a broader perspective. Asking what would matter in 10 years, what would be remembered after they were gone, what truly contributed to human flourishing. When you feel overwhelmed by the constant stream of information demanding your attention, practice this ancient technique. Rise above the urgency of the moment and ask, in the context of my larger purpose, does this information deserve my attention? Marcus Aurelius wrote that the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because we must be prepared to meet unforeseen attacks and stand firm against them. In our digital age, these attacks come not as physical challenges, but as information, designed to destabilize our peace of mind, fragment our attention, and scatter our focus. The Stoic response is not to fight each piece of information individually, but to develop the mental discipline to remain centered, regardless of what swirls around us. This discipline begins with recognizing that the feeling of needing to stay informed about everything is not wisdom, but anxiety masquerading as responsibility. True wisdom lies in discerning what deserves your attention and what does not. It means understanding that your mind is not a garbage disposal for every piece of information the world wants to throw at it, but a sacred space that should be carefully curated and jealously protected. The Stoics taught that true freedom comes not from having more options, but from needing fewer things. In our information-rich age, this translates into a profound truth. Mental freedom comes not from consuming more content, but from needing less stimulation. When you can sit in silence without reaching for your phone, when you can focus on a single task without the compulsion to check for updates, when you can be present in a conversation without the anxiety of missing something happening elsewhere, this is when you discover the power that the ancient philosophers promised. The path forward is not about rejecting all information or retreating from the world. It is about reclaiming your role as the guardian of your own mind, the curator of your own attention, the architect of your own inner landscape. In a world that profits from your distraction, choosing focus is a radical act. In a culture that celebrates being informed about everything, choosing depth over breadth is a revolutionary stance. Your mind, shaped by millions of years of evolution, to seek information for survival, was not designed for the modern flood of digital stimuli, but it was designed for something far more powerful: the capacity for conscious choice, for deliberate attention, for the wisdom to distinguish between what matters and what merely maskers as mattering. This is the gift the Stoics offer us across the centuries, not a philosophy of withdrawal, but a practice of engagement with what truly counts. In the end, the mind becomes free, not by knowing more, but by needing less. In a world drowning in noise, the Stoic finds power not in consuming every signal, but in cultivating the silence where wisdom grows. The philosophers of ancient Rome and Greece discovered this truth in their marble academies and bustling forums, and it remains just as powerful today in our digital age. True strength lies not in processing every stream of information that comes your way, but in the confident knowledge that you have chosen well what deserves the sanctuary of your attention.